Taiwan is bursting with heaps of fun places to explore. Join me, Amber Hatfield, as I hit up travel hotspots, soak up some culture, and hunt down hidden gems. Let's go! Welcome back to Let's Go. On this episode, I continue my chat with Emma Benack, previous host at RTI who's leaving Taiwan, about some of the places that are still on her bucket list and some of her suggestions for where to travel if you visit Taiwan. I begin by asking Emma what's still on her bucket list for Taiwan.
Yeah, Orchid Island. I feel like I'd also like to check out Jinmen. I feel like I was never really that interested in Jinmen because it's not one of the islands that are known really for like its tropical beaches or anything like that. But on my show, I interviewed this girl who lived there for a year, and she was just kind of talking about the history of Jinmen and the architecture there. And yeah, I thought it was something that seemed interesting to learn more about, and it's so close to China that I feel like it sort of has a different feel than some of the other islands that are part of Taiwan, and sort of for the same reason as why I want to go to Lanyu. I've also heard that, you know, it feels almost like it's a different country than Taiwan because so many of the people that live there are indigenous, and yeah, I thought that would be really interesting that's also technically part of Taiwan's culture, and I feel like I want to get as full a view of that as possible.
It's interesting, isn't it, how like you can live in a place for such a amount of time, but then never make it to certain places.
Yeah, I know. I feel like, you know, when you are here for a very short amount of time, like these international students, they're here for one semester, and I feel like every weekend they're going somewhere because it's like, you know, I have just this amount of time, like I have to make the most of it. But when you're kind of here for an indefinite amount of time, it's like, oh, like I'll get there at some point, you know, like there's stuff. I've been living in Tainan lived there for 3 years, Taipei for 2 years, and there's stuff like in those two cities that I didn't even get to go to because I'm like, oh, I can go there any day, you know?
Yeah, like the Salt Mountain in Tainan. Did you go there?
Oh, I did. Yeah. I think I actually maybe passed there on the bike, perhaps, or something.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's like a lot of places like that is just like, you hear about them and you're like, oh, I'll get to that at some point.
Yeah, definitely. Although I feel like for me, I've managed to hit up, luckily, quite a lot of the outlying islands, but I haven't been to Jinmen or Natsal, so I feel like that's definitely something I want to get to. Yeah, but when you're living in Taipei, you kind of almost feel so far removed from the southern part.
Yeah.
When I lived in Tainan, I went to Kending quite a lot of times and felt kind of nearer to the beach and that kind of like relaxed vibe. But when you're in Taipei as well, I feel like it's so easy to kind of get stuck in the city life, like working every day.
Yeah, like, and just within the metro system, there's so many places you can go to, so it's like, oh, I don't even need to take a train or a bus to get anywhere. I can just stay within this area and live a very fulfilling life, I think.
Yeah. So how do you feel that traveling in Taiwan kind of changed for you or was different over time? Like when you first came to Taiwan, I'm not sure if you spoke Chinese when you first came to Taiwan, but like how you kind of got used to the environment and how traveling maybe changed or got easier over time.
It was always pretty easy in terms of the transportation system. You know, you can just take trains to get everywhere. I'm from the US where the train system is really terrible. The bus system, I don't know, is a bit sketchy, and just everyone uses cars to drive around. And I thought it was just so amazing that I could take public transport to get to so many places. I think like as I got more comfortable in Taiwan and also with reading traditional characters, I started realizing that, oh, there are like all these apps for public transport that you can also use. That before I would like have to like walk to the train station like a couple days before and ask them like, oh, can I buy a ticket to this place? And they would print it out and I would hold on to it. And now I'm just like, I pull up an app on my phone and then I like buy it and I have the QR code to just scan and everything. So I feel like, yeah, Taiwan is pretty advanced in that way. I've never done anything like that in the US. And yeah, I guess I'm also maybe more willing to go to places that are a bit more off the beaten track because I can just, you know, speak Chinese with anyone there. I've never really had an issue where people could only speak Taiwanese, which I can't speak. So yeah, I think it just gave me more confidence to go out and do things on my own.
Yeah. So you spoke Chinese when you first moved here?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really good, but I could speak enough to like, you know, find my own apartment and I don't know, be able to buy stuff that I needed. And yeah, I've definitely gotten a lot better since then. Still room for improvement, though.
Yeah, there's always room for improvement. You can never be done with learning
No,
Chinese.
no.
I actually have a funny story of when I had first come to Taiwan and I went to Xiaoliuqiu.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, because when I first came to Taiwan, I didn't speak a word of Chinese at all.
I cannot imagine doing that.
Yeah, I didn't speak anything. I didn't even know how to like say hello or anything.
Oh
like
my
I didn't even
God.
know ni hao at all.
That is very brave.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And I remember I went on a trip with some of my co-workers who had organized this trip to Xiaoliuqiu. And we were in this restaurant in Xiaoliuqiu and I needed the toilet. I needed the bathroom, right? But I didn't know how to ask where the bathroom was. So I just like gestured to the lady. I was like gestured that I needed to pee to her. And she was like, oh. And then she showed me where it was. But then it was really funny because I went back to Xiaoliuqiu only for the second time like this year.
And she remembered you?
No. That's like 7 years since I had been there before. And I said to my friend who I used to live with in Tainan, I was like, oh, I'm going back to Xiaoliuqiu. And she was like, do you remember the last time you went to Xiaoliuqiu? You didn't even know how to ask where the bathroom was? Like, how much things have changed? And I was like, that is really crazy.
Yeah. No, I remember my first big, not huge, but like my mistakes in Mandarin in the beginning. Like, I remember wanting to order a milk tea for the first time, and I just got words confused and ended up asking for cow tea instead, and they were just like, what do you and I feel like luckily, it's never been enough to like discourage me from trying. I feel like Taiwanese people are always super encouraging when you're speaking Chinese. Like, my parents have visited here, they don't speak any Chinese. They know how to say hello, and that's literally all they would say. They would just say like ni hao, and people would be like, wow, like your Chinese is so good. And I would just be like, why are you, like, now it means nothing if you say it to me.
Yeah, I feel like Taiwanese people are really forthcoming with the compliments about like how good your Chinese is. Yeah. Sometimes it would make me feel good, and other times I'll be like, well, I didn't even say anything.
Yeah. Let me show you what I really got.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think your advice would be to someone who wants to come and travel in Taiwan that like maybe doesn't speak the language, or it's like the first time that they come here, or maybe your advice, or like where you would suggest that people go to? Like,
I feel like I have like different suggestions based on what kind of traveler this is. So I'm just going to give like a quick few little remarks. So like, if you're someone who thinks you're going to be living in Taiwan for a while, I would suggest trying to live in different cities, even if you're like super attached to one that you start off in. Like, I really love Taiwan. Really love Tainan, like a southern city. And then I ended up getting a job 3 years later in Taipei, and I had to leave so many friends and everything that I loved there. And I first got to Taipei and it was so different. I didn't really like it at first. And then like 2 years later, I had to move back to Tainan for another job, and I felt like the same way, like, oh, I'm so sad now to leave Taipei, and like, happy to be in Tainan, but you can manage to build a different kind of home in so many different places in Taiwan. So I would say like, try to step outside your comfort zone and maybe experience a city that's a bit bigger or a bit smaller than maybe you thought you might want.
That's a good advice, yeah, because I think I stayed in Tainan for a bit too long, and I quite like Taipei as well.
Yeah.
So I think there's just different benefits to each place.
Yeah, and then I would say if you're coming here to learn a language, I would suggest going further down south. Like, I thought living in Tainan was a lot better for learning Chinese for me because less people there spoke English, there were less foreigners, and I was just forced to use Chinese more. And I felt like even after living in Tainan for 3 years, when I moved up to Taipei, I felt like my Chinese got a little worse just because I just wasn't using it as much. Can still do it. There are great universities up here, but I think you just maybe need to push yourself a bit more to be using Chinese because a lot of people will just start speaking to you in English. And in terms of like a traveler just coming here for a short period to check out some places, I would try to do Huandao, like to go all the way around the island. And I would definitely go to Taipei to like experience, what it's like being in the capital of Taiwan. As I was going down from there, maybe I would stop somewhere in the middle, like Taichung, to go into the mountains bit, like Alishan or something like that, and then, or Sun Moon Lake. And then you go further down, I would definitely stop in Tainan just because it's like the cultural capital of Taiwan, in my opinion. It's the original capital of Taiwan, so there's a lot of really cool history there. And then, maybe I'd go to the southern tip to check out the beaches there. And then like in Kending, and then maybe, like for me, I would definitely stop in Dulan in Taidong But then also, like, you can't miss Taroko if you're going up then in Hualien. So I feel like I would just travel around the whole island if you could. And the thing is, with the transportation being so convenient, that's doable to do in 2 weeks. So if you only have 1 week, maybe you have to be a bit more picky with your stops. And maybe you don't have time to go to an island like Xiaoliuqiu or something. But I think you can get like a good feeling of all the diversity in Taiwan just from doing like a little trip around the outer edge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, seeing as you're leaving Taiwan really soon, if you have any kind of like final goodbye or final words to say to Taiwan as you leave.
Taiwan is a really, really special place. I came here and I thought I was just going to stay here for a year, like max 2 years, and now it's been 5 years. And I feel like it went by really quickly. And I'm someone who is a bit more shy and introverted, and maybe people who knew me in high school wouldn't think that I'm someone who would just like leave behind everything that I had in New York, come to Taiwan where I didn't know anybody. And I feel like the only reason I was able to do that was because I'd come to Taiwan for like a 2-month study abroad program when I was in college. And then I felt like I could, after I graduated, come back to Taiwan and live here because it was so welcoming and felt like a home. And that was really important to me to feel that when I was living on the other side of the world with people that I didn't know at all. And that was something that was really important to have, like during the 3 years that I couldn't leave here during COVID and everything. And yeah, I mean, Taiwan it's like forever a part of me. It's my second home. And yeah, I just feel so lucky that I got to experience it because, I mean, I was a Chinese studies major. I thought I would just go to China. And I was just really lucky that one of my teachers in the US was from Taiwan. And she was like, why don't you check out Taiwan? And I mean, that completely changed my life in more ways than I can even measure. So I'm really grateful to Taiwan and all the people that I've met here for giving me all these really good memories to take back with me and keep with me.
Yeah, wow, that's so moving. I almost want to cry. That's so nice, yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so happy to have you on my show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It feels like a very nice, like full circle moment. So thanks for having me, and I'm excited to listen to more of your show in the future so that I have some ideas for things to do when I come back to Taiwan.
And that wraps up the second part of my interview with Emma Benack. As I say goodbye to her and she says goodbye to Taiwan, I hope she'll be back on Taiwanese soil soon to visit. And I hope you'll be back to join me for my next episode in a week's time. See you then!